Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on BeamNG Drive with more vehicles being driven till destruction. We start with the Crash Hard Classic, one of the probably oldest vehicle, sort of style vehicles anyway, that we can have go around this course. Now I've gone for the sport version to give it a little bit. The standard version is not particularly quick whatsoever, so I've gone for a sport version, a little bit more poke behind it. Curious to see how this is going to survive. The suspension on this car is, interesting. It's likely to be quite bouncy, but it's also likely to be very, very difficult to kill, which is good because that's what this track kind of does, although how much we bend up the chassis is another story, shall we say. Yeah, this track can kill suspension, but it's often been killing its drive shaft. It's bending the chassis that's the problem with this one. Okay, this is actually quite quick. When it's in sport version, I didn't quite expect it to be this much faster than the standard version. Anyway, what was I saying? I've got distracted. Yes, this course, with the way the jumps are, with the way the obstacles are around here, it is often the chassis bending leading to a drive shaft snapping. That's one of the biggest concerns that we get. We'll see. Maybe that is what we'll have happen with this car. Maybe not. It does look like, it already looks like there's a lot of bounce in the suspension, and that can be good for keeping the vehicle alive. It's good up until the suspension fails. When the suspension fails, then you're in massive trouble, but up until said point, the vehicle bouncing around is relatively good news. If it's pinging about in the air, it's not doing damage to the actual car itself or to the chassis or anything like that. There are downsides to it. The possibility of rolling is one of them. The other possibility is just losing control of a car on a landing, bouncing into a bit of scenery, for example. That would be concerning. We should get through here, no problem. The car's actually got quite a good amount of turning. Certainly to start with. It's not going to finish with that amount of turning, I have no doubt. Something is going to snap in the vehicle. Nothing finishes in good health around this circuit. I guess maybe if you had a car lose a fuel tank on the first jump, and then it could run out of fuel before it ever got really badly damaged. Maybe. Oh, that's a big landing on the nose, and that's the concern. That's the concern there. Who went overshafted. That's the damage that you see done to the chassis, or certainly to the bonnet. It bends the nose of the car up, and the more that gets bent up, the more difficult it gets to a point where the engine, the drive shaft, is going to snap because it can't get to the rear diff. So yeah, that's already a bit of an alarming thing. The radiator in this car is quite high up. Ooh. Christ, I lost all the radiator housing. Yeah, the radiator is quite high up, so that might be difficult to kill. That's good news for us in terms of survivability. Overheating is another way, of course. It's easy for cars to go out on. Speaking of fuel tanks, actually, this one here is hanging over the back. Could see that ruptured. I'd be a bit more... Oh, God. I'd be a bit more concerned probably about the drive shaft, although... Yeah, who knows, if I'm honest. Oh, that's a big clonk again onto the back of the vehicle. Here we go. We are across the big jump. Oh, that really lands on its nose hard. The exhaust is gone. Oh, we've lost control. Oh, that's appalling. The car looks a little bit like a hot rod from the front now, but a really weird one. A really weird one. Yeah, that's not a good sign. After a lap, we've got to that level of buckled chassis, banana chassis. Oh, God, I did like all of the ways of trying to calculate the banana rating of a chassis. This one here is quite high on that scale at the moment. It's done well, actually, for the drive shaft to still be okay. I can't imagine it's going to make another lap. Not if it bends that chassis up at the same rate this lap as it did last lap. I can't imagine it's going to survive. The engine itself is actually doing pretty good in terms of... nothing else really mechanical is going wrong with this. It's just those landings on the nose that's killing it. Across the checkerboard we go. Now, we could see, it's not impossible, although unlikely, with most vehicles, that the chassis gets so far bent down that it actually is scraping on the floor when it goes across the checkerboard. Now, unlikely, the drive shaft will snap in a vehicle like this before we ever get to that stage, but we may see it, I guess, from some vehicles at some point. Now, normally we say if you have to grab reverse, the car's counted out. That's not because we've lost steering. I grab reverse just going to spun the car and was recovering it. That's absolutely fine to do. The vehicle's still got very much a fuller complement of steering. It doesn't quite handle like it should anymore. Funnily enough, this level of damage to the chassis does affect the driving a little bit. It still goes in a straight line, which is amazing. I love that we've got like flappy, I guess, mudguards along the side of the vehicle. They're quite funny. The left-hand side one more than the right-hand side one. That's probably not going to survive another lap, though, let's face it. Here we go, up towards the big jump car. You will clear it. You're going to hit... Oh, so hard on the front of the vehicle again. Yet the other mudguard's come off. That's flapping around now. That's okay, though. The drive shaft is still good. The vehicle's still going. It's still, I would say happy, but that's probably not the right word. If this goes out for any other reason than something drive shaft chassis related, I'm going to be astounded, because nothing else is really being hurt here. The thing is with this, the sort of, the slower we go over the jump, the more likely we are to clonk out the radiator. This one here, we've got to go quick over. You have to go quick over that one, otherwise you just land directly on the nose, and that will kill a radiator. Because the faster we go, the more likely we are to bend the chassis, and the more force and more energy is going through that car when it does come crashing back down. Still, that's another big crunch. I wonder if this is because the suspension is not really taking damage, it's going into the chassis more than anything. Maybe this is the downside of the much softer, almost, I say indestructible, this sort of suspension can be wrecked, but it is tough. Maybe this is the downside, is that it just sends more force through the chassis, just bends the chassis more. Oh, that's another huge hit. How is this car still going okay? When I say going okay, I'm not 100% sure it's really fully okay, but these are some massive hits it's taking on the front of the car. And it's still going along. The radiator surely can't be long for this world. What it takes is going to take one hit and that radiator is going to go. I guess it's landing... It's landing and bending the chassis before it hits the radiator. The exhaust is poking out of the boot. That's a sign of a good car. A sign of many problems. Oh, there goes all the exhaust now. All the exhaust has come off underneath it. That's fine. Do we have... Did something collapse at the front as we went around that corner? It does feel unhappy. No, are we good? Have we lost something in terms of suspension? I've overdriven that corner, although that does happen sometimes. It's a really nasty tightening radius corner. Difficult to tell if we've got something more mechanical wrong. It didn't feel very well going through that corner. Through the spin as we go. Actually holding good speed still through there. Right, across the bumpy rumble strips at the carousel. I mean, it's got bad in terms of the chassis, and then not really got any worse at this point. Across the big jump, I say that. We should probably get that landing down first before saying too much. Ooh! That was what I was talking about in terms of difficulties in controlling landings of the cars as they bounce around randomly. This section here is all walled in, so if you get a bad landing and it bounces and spins or bounces, you lose control, you're in trouble because you've got nowhere to go. You're going to hit a wall, and that is going to do damage to the car as well. The steering is a little bit tweaked now. I'm not sure whether that was from brushing the wall or whether that was from the landing of the jump anyway. God, I mean, the whole thing is shaking around awfully on these jumps. It's not being shaken around enough to fall apart yet, but yet is the optimum word, I think, here. Well, at some point, something's going to have to give, and when that something gives, everything's going to go. Like, something is going to let go, and then that's just going to lead to the complete downward spiral of this car. That's a big roll. Off go the mudguards now. That really does look like a hot rod. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Well, that's the first roll for the vehicle. The rear wheels... Oh! Okay, the rear axle is now hopping. That's not good. That's not what you want. That's not supposed to happen. Oh, that's really bad. That's really bad. This is what I was saying. We've lost the front wheel. Wheel's gone. This is what I'm saying. As soon as that damage goes, so this is the rear axle damage is what's caused this. Because now the car's just not flying through the air properly, so it's twisted. We've lost a front wheel. The whole rear end might actually come off at some point. I'd say this is fantastic. This is fantastic entertainment. It's not fantastic for vehicle survival. Yeah, so the whole back end, in that roll, the whole back end has come loose. You can see the body actually moving around on on the axle. So it's held in place, but not properly. We're going to have real fun times trying to get through the checkerboard here. That's going to be a problem. I actually have fun times getting through the water as well, through the shallow grave. Ooh! The shallow grave took off the front wheels. I didn't have steering to even try anything different. We drove it into the shallow grave. The entire front axle has actually come out of the car. We technically still have drive, but we have no wheels at the front to do the steering. Look at that, the entire front axle has come out. That's fantastic. I mean, it's busted, but also wonderful and glorious all at the same time. That's a very broken car. It put on a good fight, you know. Credit where credit is due. That put on a hell of a fight. And it was one hell of a failure that led to the end of the Crash Hard Classic. We move from a classic car to a, well, slightly more modern car. This is the Cache? I'm not sure quite how to pronounce it, but it's basically a K car. It is a very small, it's even smaller version of a Covet. It has a 660cc engine. It's got a manual gearbox. This is kind of a mid-ish spec. There are some crazy specs of this that may well run in a later episode, but we're starting off with just a normal K car, pretty much. I think it might struggle to survive. I could be wrong here. Of course, the plus side for the K car is it's light. Okay, so there's not as much energy, there's not many forces going through this vehicle as it hits the jumps, which is good for survivability. There is no doubt about it. It is good for survivability. When we hit the ground, we don't hit the ground with as much force. Well, the radiator leaking on the first jump is a problem. That is an issue. Now, we'll get a good couple of laps before it overheats, and let's not forget the shallow grave. While it tore apart the Crash Hard, it will cool the vehicle. So the radiator going immediately, while a pain, is not my biggest concern in the world. There are bigger concerns. The problems we might see with this car, if something does, if it hits a big landing awkwardly, I could see something just snapping immediately. I could see it letting go very quickly because it might not quite have the strength of some vehicles. And we did see the standard Covet actually got around here and survived until it overheated, which is unusual for hatchbacks. Front-wheel drive hatchbacks do not generally fare too well around this sort of level of destruction circuit because the front wheels are susceptible to damage, and, well, you lose one wheel axle, you lose drive completely, you lose steer. Whereas a rear-wheel drive car will get away losing a front wheel, it can still steer. Front-wheel drive car, most of the diffs, very few diffs, will allow the car still to drive. So, yeah, I'd be concerned about a front wheel axle going. Drive shaft, of course, we don't have to worry about in this. We're not going to see that snap here, which is the wheel axle that might go. That's a concern. Oh, we're not very quick up here. Please be fast. I've already, 50 miles an hour gets you over the worst of the landing there. Like I say, I think you really want about 60 miles an hour, but as long as it can crack 50, it's not doing too badly. The other thing, I guess, being light, well, that's good for less forces, essentially, going through the car. It does mean it gets thrown around a lot more by the bumps. So, I mean, some of the bumps over here that we wouldn't normally even get airtime on are launching this car about a fair bit. Over the edge of Dover we go. Oh, lands hard on the front, but it's not too bad. It's done some damage to that front left. That front left actually held up pretty good. That's, I think, to do with the car being light, but it is pulling now to the left-hand side. Definitely don't want to have this hit the spinners. If we have heavy steering damage and this goes into the spinners, this is probably so light it won't survive that. Some of the sports cars and some of the stronger cars can actually get away with hitting the spinners. The spinners don't do as much damage as you think they do, on the most part, but you still don't. You definitely want to hit it with a very small, light car. Front wheel axles are tough. I will give them that. I will give them credit where credit is due. Those front wheel axles are actually pretty strong on this as we survive a first lap. So the little K car is not going to be the worst car around this course. Speed bump's not too bad. I'm kind of leaving it in second because honestly I think I go up to third, it's just going to die. It doesn't seem to have much power low down. Let's face it, this has got a tiny, tiny little engine in here, a 660cc engine. It doesn't have very much power. By far the smallest engine that would have gone around this course. So it isn't going to be astonishingly quick. Across the rocks we go. Now, checkerboard is not really doing very much to the car. Outside of that radiator going, it's not actually had too many problems, and this is good news for the vehicle, you know. In terms of survivability, as I said with a couple of cars before, you know, if we get to a point where you're going around laps and the car's not really, there's going to be some damage done to a vehicle, okay, around this circuit. There's always going to be some. But if you get to a point where once that damage has been done, or once some damage has been done, and it's not really getting worse on subsequent laps, then you're doing pretty well. This is a small issue. Toblerones can cause problems for cars rolling over. They have done that. Okay, steering still good in the little K car. Absolutely wonderful through that section. As you would imagine, it's got a very short wheelbase, has got very good levels of grip. So yeah, we can get through the spinners no problem at all. Right. The only downside with me leaving in second is that, well, I overheat it quite a lot, but third it dies and runs out of power. Oh, that's a conundrum right there. Third might still just about be enough to get us up here. Yeah, maybe we're going to have to start leaving it in third a little bit more. It's a... leave it in third and risk going too slow over jumps and having a worse time at the front of the car, or leave it in second. I have to go to second down here because it is quite slow. But leave it in second, overwork the engine, overheat the engine, explode the engine, which we don't want. Alright, Dover, here we come. Let's try carry all the speed that we can muster up here. That's actually a really good line through there. It's a big hit on the front of the car. Ooh, we're going to go for another roll. It's fine. It's a roll, but it's not really bending the wheels. Like bodywork, sure. Bodywork's a bit damaged, a bit buckled. The front end's a bit smacked up. We've got the littlest of pulls to the left, I think, on the old steering front. The axles are... The wheels are smacking on the ground, but there's no damage to the front wheel axles. That's impressive. They're impressively strong on this car. Again, this might be carryover. You know, they've got covert parts on it, for example. It might be that the parts are designed for a covert, which, when that's involved in these hits, it's just a heavier car. So we've got less stress going on those parts. I don't know. I'm pondering aloud as we run around here. That's not going to be good for the suspension if we keep doing that, but it's on to another lap. It's not spectacular, it's certainly not quick around here, but it is on to another lap. It's a shame that, oh god, now there is actually a little bit of bananaing going on the chassis. Nowhere near like we saw with the Crash Hard, but there is a smidge. There is a smidge going on at the moment. Right. Let's bounce through this section. That section not really done too much to many cars. I'm sure it'll be something that will get broken on it, but it's not going to be this one. Through the water we head. Now that'll give it a little bit of a cool, although the cooling can keep the temperature down to an extent. The car's still going to overheat, and it's still going to do a lot of damage to the engine around the course of the lap, and especially perhaps with this one that is having to be worked pretty damn hard because it just isn't particularly fast. The problem is, as soon as I go to third for any of these obstacles, you lose a little bit of speed and then it just dies. Oh, we're going to go for another roll. Have we got across the tow roads yet without falling over? Hey, we land. I don't think we have. We've still got front suspension. It's poorly. It's not right, because you can see the car is like leaning massively as we steer, but... Ooh, okay, that's new. Something must have got in it, because a turn in the back end is very lively all of a sudden. Okay. Something has broken in that, yeah. So if we steer to the right, does it do it to the left? Okay, yeah, we steer to the right and the back end wants to come around and say hello. That's not how it's supposed to be, which suggests something's broken. Oh, the car's actually now not getting up that jump. It's losing power. It's losing speed somewhere along the way. I think we have got to that point now where I'm going to have to just leave it in second because it's struggling. But of course that's going to blow the engine to bits. We should have to keep it going for as long as we can. Keep running the little car. You can make it, vehicle. You can survive. Hopefully you can survive. Fingers crossed you can survive around here and do well. Oh, that's a big hit on the nose of the car. Still no sign of the wheel axles being damaged. If we can get to shallow grave, we can cool you down a little bit. It won't be enough to... So it won't save you indefinitely, but it might be able to stop the engine from taking some damage. A little bit. I mean, I'm concerned what these... Say what these next jumps go through. They've just not really done anything. Like, I keep expecting it to land on one of these and the front wheel to go, but they haven't. The front wheel has not gone. It's fallen over again. There we go. We'll flick it back onto its wheels. Alright. Come on, car. Let's get going. I mean, the chassis is a bit low to the ground, but it's nowhere near enough to be catching. Here we go. That's an awkward landing on the jump there. It's not really what it wanted, but we are across once more. The piston rings are damaged, and now we're in the territory where no amount of cooling is going to save this engine. We can get to the shallow grave. It'll maybe cool the temperatures a bit, but the engine's now so poorly, it kind of doesn't matter anymore. Gasket hasn't gone yet, but that'll be next on the line of things to go. And I've got to leave it in second because I put this to third, and it's just going to die with no power whatsoever. I mean, maybe we could go third through here. Oh god, it's actually now got really shaken around across those potholes. Oh, that engine's not good. We'll run through the water, and that might get it a little respite. You can see the temperature dropping now, but the damage has already been done to the vehicle. I suspect if it makes its way to the to shafted, I suspect it's going to fall off the end of that, land on the nose, and break something pretty bad. Or it'll fall off a Dover and do a similar sort of thing. If it survives the shafted jump, it's going to fall off the next one. Now there is a rule that we have here, whereby if a vehicle can't go faster than 20 miles an hour in a sensible amount of space, the vehicle will be counted out. It's the crueler rule that I have. Never had to actually use it, but it prevents... None of the series actually ever had to use it, but it prevents badly damaged vehicles from just limping indefinitely, because it gets to a point where a car is so slow it can't physically hurt itself, or it is possible for a vehicle to be so slow that it can't actually do much to damage itself anymore. So yeah, this is looking like a sort of vehicle that could almost end up at that stage. Oh god, I can't change to third because it will just stall out if I do. We're going very slowly over here. Oh, it's still alive. Somehow, miraculously, the car is still alive. After that, I really thought that was going to be the death blow for it. It's still going. It's still. I mean, the temperatures come way, way, way down on this, which surprises me. We've seen cars that get cooling from that section, yes, absolutely, but they don't normally get that much. So it cools it a little bit, and then it normally shoots up by the end of the lap and goes back to damaging the vehicle. Oh, the front is not going to survive many more like that. You can see the front wheel is actually being pushed all the way back. It's a strong bloody car, this. I will say, I will give it that much. And potentially the damage is helping it a little bit at the moment. We're not hitting these as hard as we were. It's bad news for the shafted jump, massively bad news for that jump, but the rest of these, it's mostly good news, I think, because I don't think we're going to quite be hitting the ground as hard. Although we'll have to wait and see. What do we do over here? That's a big clonk on the front end again. Okay, little car, we're taking another big jump. Oh god, I got control of it just. We nearly speared ourselves into the start-finish line post there. And this is where things started going wrong for the... Was it this lap? I can't remember. I lost track of my laps for the crash hard. Oh, that's a new one. Actually, I say it's a new one. No, something else flipped over there. Was it the bolide flipped on that one? So now it's really getting broken now. The car is in a really, really, really bad way here. The suspension's completely knackered to the point where it's now flipping it off of random stuff that wouldn't normally have done it. Yeah, okay, I think we've got rear shock damage as well now going on here. You know, it's bad when the rear's giving up completely as well on a front-wheel drive car. Oh, get back on the road. There we go. Oh, I've got weird amounts of steering going on. Ooh, that feels like that's tearing the underside of the car about quite a lot as well. Come on. Yeah, so everything's broken basically on this one. Can it keep alive? This is the big question: is how long can it just keep going? Can it keep going to beat the blue buck? Is that one? Or any of those? I think it's going to be getting quite close to our second place if it hasn't got it already. This is a very, very good showing for the K car, because you don't expect these little vehicles like this to survive the punishment of a course, well, like this one really. Oh, and we can still go very quickly through the spinners. Just sort of chuck the car through, got a big slide. If it's going to die, I think it's going to be on this next jump. I think shafted is going to take out, well, the front wheel axles. Possibly. And the engine's now cooled down completely. I don't know how it overheated before. Who knows? This is it. We've got to leave it in second, because otherwise we really don't stand a chance. And it lives again. It still lives. The front looks so bad on this. The wheels have been pushed back so far. This does not look like a car that's going to live for too much longer, but I keep saying that. I keep going around these corners expecting any time one of these jumps to be the vehicle's last. But it's not. It's still going. I think it's got to that magical point. I probably shouldn't speak too soon. Let's get over Dover next. Oh, that's not good. We've got to that point where the damage is now so much that the car is struggling to go quick enough to actually do further damage. Now, the crueler rule prevents that to an extent, but this is still, you know, going quick enough to make all of the jumps. We have jumps on this course that are designed to punish cars that are going too slowly in, but it's surviving all of that punishment. Now, we saw, what was it, the 200BX, the Solita, all of those cars there, when damaged, go off the shafted jump and just the drive shaft goes immediately. They go off the jump a little slower than they are supposed to be, whereas this one here is surviving everything so far. That does not look good, but it's still there. It's still... The front is so low to the ground. I'm amazed those wheel axles are still in one piece. Oh, the So that's the speed bump section's got really bad for the car now. It's like resonating across them to the point where by the end it's flipping onto its roof. Definitely looks like there's further damage to the front. That front right is so bad. The thing is, if it doesn't die on this lap, it really does stand a chance of going to the top of the leaderboard. What is it going to take to kill this car? Can it? I keep thinking surely the shafted jump is going to kill it. Every lap at the moment, the last few laps, every time I'm thinking surely this jump has got to kill the car. Surely it can't survive again across that jump. But we lost a hubcap. Amazing stuff. It's the first hubcap. Bloody hell, they're well stuck on there. Normally they come off within a lap. Normally they're all pinged off and out of existence. But no, the hubcaps on this are good. It doesn't drive very nicely anymore, this, at all. It's completely garbage to drive. It's not got very much speed, but okay, Toblerones, what are you going to do to this car? It hasn't really enjoyed this section so far. It's all good. Nothing really much worse has happened. Into the spinners we head again. No issues whatsoever. The steering is fine in this car. The fuel has gone down a little bit. I mean, it'd be fun if we took out the fuel tank, but good the car. No, I mean it's going to die before it runs out of fuel, I should think. I say that. Technically we have had one. We had a monster truck run out of fuel, but that was just because it's very thirsty. This is now really struggling. There's just momentum up here. We're going to be even slower off the end of this jump. How can it keep surviving that hit? It's upside down again now. Come on, over we go. It's another rolled vehicle. Come on, keep going. It doesn't really like setting off anymore. There's so much damage in this, but it's continuing on. It survives another time across shafted. That front is looking really suspect now. I mean, not that it wasn't before, but I mean that quarter is basically scraping on the floor the entire way around. If we hit the checkerboard wrong, I think that might actually start hitting it. Well, I guess we're going to find out. We are doing very well in this car. It really is surviving nicely. Dover is going to be a concern here because we've not got any speed going over the edge. It hits again hard on the front of the car. But it survives another one. Is that chassis actually on the floor yet? If it isn't, surely it's got to be next lap around. Come on car. You can... I kind of want it to beat the Blue Buck. I kind of don't, all at the same time. I kind of hope, because it'd be a really unusual one to see to go to the top. It's weird. It's very weird, this. I was not expecting this performance from the car whatsoever. Here we go. Across a jump. It lands again on that corner. It's just not doing enough to really do it too much harm. The speed bumps after turn one might actually be one of the more damaging obstacles at this current moment in time, with the way they ping the back of the car into the air. I mean, we've got to go for it. Oh god. They really do a load of damage to this one. It is now upside down. Oh god, let's flicked it over. I flicked it over a little bit too viciously on that one. Come on, over we go. I'm not allowed to turn the engine off if the car rolls. The engine, the oil, the engine being starved of oil is, I guess, like a punishment for the car rolling. Oh god, it's not a happy looking shape anymore. I'll say that much. Now I know this car struggles to get to set off, so now I am allowed to pull the vehicle. Oh, that's the front bumper. Car, have we actually still got drive left in it? There we go. I guess it's where the engine is. It just doesn't have much go low down. There we go. It is moving. It does meet the crawler rule criteria here. The temperature's shooting back up, but it's just going to go down once we hit the water. It may be going up quicker this time around. Who knows? We know this engine is poorly. We know there's nothing really good about this engine left, but the car is still going. Across the shallow grave we head, and we do have, I believe, a new lead. I'll have to check. Of course, the distance indicator is not always 100% accurate with cars. Especially, it's not 100% accurate in general, but especially when we start dealing with heavily damaged cars, it doesn't always track fully. But I believe we have a new leader. The real question is, how far is this going to put the benchmark I think it's going to put it quite a long way. I think it's going to put it quite well. I say that. Something's got to kill this car. Like, something, surely, has got to kill this. It is a complete wreckmobile. The most amazing thing is that I could probably even go underneath the spinners after that roll. Yeah, the most incredible thing about this vehicle is that its steering is still absolutely perfect. The steering is 100% spot on. The car actually drives in a straight line. Better than most cars. So this car, after however many laps I've lost track of one of the most punishing circuits we've ever had, drives in a straight line better than most cars do after a lap of much less punishing circuits. It does pull ever so slightly, but this is not going to go well over here now. Still it lives. This is ridiculous. It lives another hit across there. I mean, it's going slower and slower each time. I think there may get a point where it actually physically stops being able to climb that hill. There may be a point where the engine is that poorly. But for now, it is still going. It is still limping its way around. Dover could be a concern if we lose so much power the way that you drop off of that cliff. Okay, I can take like this wide swinging arc to try and get some speed up. That's not good. That's not good. That's a massive hit on the front of the car, but it just doesn't matter. It's just completely irrelevant to this vehicle. What is it going to take to stop this car? Is it going to be running out of fuel? Maybe. I think it's... I mean, we may end up starting to get to a point where the one bit that was giving a problem, the speed bumps after turn 1, we may actually be going slowly enough that we don't really feel them either. I don't know. Surely something is going to have to give in this vehicle. We're across that jump once more, nothing. We are flat out through this first corner, because it picks up speed around here because it has... Oh, there it goes. That's it. The speed bump's got it, I think. I'd be amazed if this can carry on now with the front left wheel axle broken. Yeah, they were actually the most punishing of obstacles there. Does it drive? Actually, if I just rev the engine up... No, it doesn't. Like all the front-wheel drive cars, once one wheel is gone, the others will not work. That is an astonishing run. That is an absolutely astonishing run right there. We have a new leader. It wasn't massively quick around the laps of the course, but it just kept going. It kept going and going and going and going and going. In the end, it was the speed bumps that got it, which is... I mean, they were the obstacle that was doing the most damage by the end of that. So many things were broken on that car, but the fact that it kept going as long as it did is incredible. That is absolutely amazing. So yeah, we have a new leader around this circuit, and it is absolutely not what I, or probably anybody, ever expected. So, on to our leaderboard, and we have a new leader. 11.3 miles driven around the Proving Ground circuit. That is going to take some beating, if I'm honest. I said that about the Blue Buck, and I thought that about the Blue Buck. I never expect the Kishai, or however it's pronounced, to go as far as it did. I don't think anybody perhaps was expecting that one. That's a mighty impressive run for that vehicle. The Crash Hard Classic does also do pretty well down in 6th place. It was very, very close between... I mean, the Alpha was only a little bit further along. As I said, the distance indicator is something a little funny, especially with heavily damaged cars and all that, which is why the distance is a slightly funky order, but... still a very, very good showing from that Crash Hard, and it's had perhaps one of the most spectacular failures of all of the cars. I didn't quite know what to put, because kind of the entire front end came away, so... yeah, it was a very, very good failure for it. It was doing really well up until that roll, and just once the rear axle came loose, everything went downhill. But there we go. That's going to be it for this video. As ever, I shall link all those used in the description, so you can download them and have a go with them yourself. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.